start the part of the afternoon that matters most, which is trying to take the vision that Rick has outlined so passionately to us and see how we translate it into reality here in this county and in this watershed. My name is Chet Myers. I'm with the Ojai Valley Green Coalition. The coalition is one of the sponsors of today's event. Always trying to fuel the imagination of the community about how we can be sustainable. I've been asked to acknowledge Carissa Collins, who is with the Ojai Film Festival and who focuses on environmental filmmaking. Is that correct?
Yes, on the Focus Earth portion.
On the Focus Earth. So please welcome Carissa. We're really glad you're here. As Ulrich said at the beginning of our evening, we've got 4 distinguished local activists and resource people. This is Patty Pagling of Transition to Organics. I know most of you know these folks very well. Renee Roth, who is very active in all kinds of watershed work, as well as other issues. Steve Sprinkle of the famous Farmer and the Cook. And David Goldstein, who is worked with the county and is a journalist. We've invited each of these folks to say a word about what they do, to flag some ideas, issues that came up for them as they were listening to Rick, tell a story or two. They're going to have 2 rounds, very brief, just to kind of get the conversation started. All right, so please give your attention, and we'll just start with Patty, and we'll go right down the line.
Well, first of all, I'm Patty Pagling with Transition to Organics, and I'm really excited that this group of people is gathered here today. Our group, Transition to Organics, really looks at the holistic view of our community, and we are working to help educate the community members and the farmers that there are ways of farming and gardening and even taking care of your homes that can be done without any of the toxic chemicals. And I know that Steve has been doing this for so many years. He's got the answers to how we can
By
garden and
cracky, I
farm.
sure do.
I
cracky.
Yes, he does. Many years. So one of the things that kind of popped out for me when Rick was talking, and I'm so thankful that you came to speak with us, and it just, when someone says that we can do it, I'm so excited. So I know that having to do with the toxic wastes, we do have the Paul Stamets, the expert with mushrooms, who says how we can save the world with mushrooms, because they can eat up any of the toxics that seem to be impossible to us at this point. So that's kind of a hopeful thing to look at. And then plastics seems to be the big problem as far as packaging. So how do we come up with something that is similar to plastics but doesn't hurt the earth and doesn't hurt, all of the beings in the oceans that we're surrounded by? Another thing I was thinking about, I have a book called Humanure, and I know that that's kind of a topic that no one really wants to deal with, but if we weren't putting all of our crap into the sewer system and we took care of it right away on our own land, if we had the capability and the understanding that wherever we are, in a quarter acre or an acre, we took care of all of our stuff right there, we don't have to have a problem with the sewers. We don't have to send it out to the oceans. That's just an idea. And then there is also composting pet waste. I mean, it's not something we want to put on our gardens, but we can take care of these wastes with the correct kinds of enzymes. So that's what came to me.
Thank you. Renee.
I'm just going to stand up really quick because I took some notes. My name is Renee Roth, and I started out at the Green Coalition several years ago and got involved with watershed issues, and have been attending Ventura River Watershed Council meetings. I also got involved with Surfrider Foundation and their Ocean Friendly Gardens program, and have taken it to becoming an environmental actionist, because I really do think that there are lots of things that we can do And I'm sure all of you were aware that the governor has just made the drought official, that we're all kind of feeling the dryness in the air. We haven't had any moisture. And what does that mean for Ojai and the residents and the people here? What does it mean for our food growers? What does it mean for our mountains and the fire threats, the fire hazards that can present themselves? There's lots of community issues that are drawn around our water resources. And I was just speaking with Deborah, and we were saying we could turn our water issues into a zero waste management approach, because our water is, the only water we get is what falls from the sky and floats down those mountains into our underground storage tanks and into Lake Casitas. So zero waste management is a really important concept that I think we in the Ojai Valley need to start recognizing. Is we've all got to take some action. There's something we can all do. The idea of having our own property and managing the waste on it is one thing, but we can also manage the water on it, because our roof, just like our mountains up here, are like the top of a watershed. And we can start taking that roof water and directing that water either into cisterns or storage tanks or rain gardens. We can also take our gray water, the water that comes from doing the laundry, our washing machines, and direct that water into our landscapes. That's 45 gallons to 50 gallons if you've got the old machines of water that we can start putting into our landscapes, every time we do the laundry. So from my point of view, we're wasting so much water. I started doing a little bit of research, and it said that it takes 2 gallons of water to make 1 piece of paper. 2 gallons of water to make 1 piece of paper. Okay, and then I was thinking, okay, how many gallons does it take to make an apple? You start thinking about the water resource that goes into our food production. It's amazing. So what I was trying to do is, guess how many gallons it takes to make a gallon of gas? 97 gallons of water to make a gallon of gasoline. So from my point of view, we've got to rethink not only our waste stream, but our production stream, and start realizing that water as a resource is not free. It's underpriced, it's cheap, and we've developed this whole production cycle of goods and services that are based on cheap water, and we need to start rethinking that model. So, that's it.
We'll have another chance to hear from everybody on the panel. Steve, welcome.
Thank you. I bring you greetings from my planet, where they fight for my trash. I for a long time was composting the residue from the store, and I have these huge buckets. I would load them up in the truck, and I'd have to go out and dump them in a long windrow and rototiller. And I kept on trying to get people involved, especially with livestock, to take the stuff away. And it was hit and miss for a while, but now people fight for my garbage. And I have to apologize when I see someone come from the pig farm over in Casitas Pass. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Warren. Someone was just here. They took it." He said, "I'll be back." So that's one little anecdote, because I finally got rid of that ball and chain. I'll tell you, composting all this stuff was really a big deal, because there was like 800 to 1,200 pounds of it a week. It's a vegetarian restaurant. I mean, there's an awful lot of celery butts in there. And then after I opened the store, I always knew I was going to compost. I always knew I was going to throw that stuff away. And so I had all these 5-gallon buckets. And about half a year or so after we'd opened, the man came from the Ojai Valley Sanitation District with his clipboard. And he wanted to see my pickup reports from the renderer, the guy who sucks up the oil from the oil trap. And I said, "Ah, man, I'm busted." So busted. I had removed the oil trap from my sink because I did not have any oil. I did not have any oil, and so every time we turned on the sink, this horrible sulfurous gas would fill the store. And that's not really to make people hungry. So we got rid of the oil trap because I didn't have any oil. But the man from the sanitation district wanted to see my reports. And I figured, this is going to be a $500 fine. I didn't even think you were going to come get me. And so he said, well, what are you doing then? I said, we scrape off the plates. When they come in, we scrape off the plates into these buckets. Then we take them outside. And then I had 20 buckets outside. They're full. And he went out with his clipboard and he said, you mean you're composting all this? I said, yes. He said, wow. Best management practices. He gave me an exemption right off the bat.
That's great. I love this.
Like that. And so, and that was really quite by accident because I didn't plan that one. And so, and actually, the last thing I wanted to share is that you're looking at someone who's made $500,000 in old cardboard boxes in the last 20 to 30 years.
See?
Because I don't buy them. Each one of those cardboard boxes that's covered with paraffin so it won't break down when you put wet bunches of broccoli in it is a one-way trip to the dump. It cannot be recycled. It can't because it's covered with paraffin. And the last thing the fire department wants to hear is that there's a box fire down there at Calpine. So those things burn like crazy. So they're troublemakers, those boxes. However, we've devised a system here locally, and I know a lot of other people are doing this all over the state. I didn't invent it. It was just such low-hanging fruit, like it hit us in the head. These boxes are worth so much money. I reuse them and reuse them and reuse them, and I give them to BD, that my friend down here on Kuyama who has a farm, Bob Dowch at Earth Tribe, and he and his guys come and get the boxes too. And so we reuse these boxes all the time, and then I don't have to buy the boxes. I can't ship in a used box. But since I don't do so much shipping, because I try to sell it all here, which is another feature, just try to keep it all here in the valley, then I'm not buying this commodity, and they've gone up in value every year, it seems. As I say, it's a one-way trip. They're not going anywhere except into the landfill after I get done with them, unless I reuse them. I think that's it.
Thanks, Steve.
Will they break down quite fast?
We're going to have a chance for questions in just a few minutes. David Goldstein is with the county. We're really delighted to have both a county employee and a journalist and activist on his own right. He's going to take all 7 of his minutes to run us through a quick PowerPoint. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you. I'm just going to cover the parts that are in response to Rick's presentation. And I'm not officially representing the county or the Ventura County Recycling Market Development Zone or any of the papers that I write for, but that's just the background that I come from. So there are a number of materials that are specific to Ventura County and that we could cover in response to Rick's presentation. But in the interest of time, I'm really only going to talk about the top one there, agricultural plastics. And I'm also going to only focus really on the third arrow. You know, the recycling symbol is 3 arrows. Normally we talk about the collection one, that's the first arrow. But if all you do is collection, then all you're going to end up with is well-sorted landfills. The second one is processing. But if all you do is processing, or if you do collection and processing, you'll only end up with well-sorted warehouses. So the part that I specialize in is the third arrow, which is in market development. And that pulls the other 2 arrows around the circle because it results in products being made. So there are a number of ways we could get to zero waste. You know, the ways that we could turn our system into the kind of system that Rick was talking about. The ones that I focus on are the ones that are political. The ones that the public sector can do to influence private sector management. And the way to implement these generally is to get people in office who will do what Rick said. Remember how he said, staff is just waiting for the politicians to come to them and say, give me a zero waste plan. Well, it's true, you know, we are, but it's not going to happen unless the people elect the politicians who make it happen. So these are all the methods that could be done. These are all things that are being done elsewhere, or in many cases being done here. So let me just focus on that one, agricultural plastics, because the successes and failures in Ventura County really show some of the opportunities and pitfalls of the methods to use politics, to get policy, to create zero waste. So first of all, if we just collect things and we don't have local market development, as Rick mentioned, it's going to go to China. Remember he pointed to those bales in the slide, he says, well, these are baled and they go to China. But if it goes to China, then there are a number of problems with it, a number of missed opportunities locally. But one of the major problems is despoiling the Chinese countryside and sickening generations of Chinese former farm workers. And if really the point of getting to zero waste is to conserve resources and to benefit the environment, we're not really doing that if we're exporting to China. Because if the labor and environmental standards of recycling in China are so low, what have we accomplished? So we need to do it locally. The advantage also of doing it locally is shown here. If you take agricultural plastics and you dump them, they have a negative value of $50 a ton. If you then turn it into flakes and pellets, you have a positive value of $500 a ton. Turn those pellets and flakes into reusable plastic pallets, and you have something $5,000 a ton, reusable plastic pallets. So that difference in value from a weight on your economy, a negative value, to a positive in your economy, a product, that difference funds jobs. So there are lots of good reasons to do it. There are lots of tools available for the public sector to help the private sector do it. There are various forms of assistance we can provide. We can do public outreach. This is a couple of examples of things we did to help a company reach the generators. A company comes in, they want the ag plastic, how do they let all the farmers know? Well, we have the database of everybody who's ever applied for a pesticide permit. So we know, for example, who this flyer needs to go to and what message needs to be communicated. But we're up against a lot of challenges that go beyond just simply, let's organize, let's get politicians elected, let's get the public policy in place. There are a lot of barriers that we're going to have to overcome with individual action. The major one is that there are some serious economic limitations. Like, for example, I'm talking about agricultural film plastic. One major use of ag film is mulch. Well, why don't we just substitute Roundup green waste for mulch? It's the cost. If the cost of the agricultural inputs is greater than the value of the crop, you can't do it. So there were some barriers we hit in doing a previous facility that we cited here to recycle agricultural film plastic. There are a lot of practical barriers also to all kinds of recycling, including agricultural film, including the types of materials that I hit in the first slide. There are also the simple barrier that the businesses that are in place are in the business of making money. And sometimes the cheapest thing is waste. And Rick, you had a really good point that, why are you buying a material if it's just going to become waste? Stop buying it. Well, sometimes the cheapest way to make a product is to impose costs on other people. And so yes, let's end subsidies. Again, we get back to the political. So after businesses fail, there's a lot of things we need to do to try to recover from that failure. Now, Rick also made a really good point. We're talking about downstream management of the waste a lot. Let's recycle it, let's reuse it. But upstream is more important. It's the source reduction. So this is an experiment that happened, and the McGrath Farm cooperated. We got grants to do a study here. This on the left is an alternative to agricultural film plastic. It's made from recycled paper. The middle row there, covering strawberry crop, is an alternative. It was made from potato starch. And then on the sides are the conventional plastic. So that's another role the public sector can have if they have a political mandate from politicians who are elected by the people who want to see these things happen. The grants wouldn't have been in place unless there was the public agitation to have the public policy that provided a private project overseen by the county. Oh, and then we get back also to the barriers. So why doesn't everybody transition to the paper? You can see the potato starch didn't work out well, degraded prematurely in the field. But the ag film made from recycled paper does work, as well as plastic. Why isn't everybody using it? It's more expensive. Okay? So maybe some of that is due to subsidies for oil extraction. Maybe some of that is because of expensive wars we fight to secure our supply of oil. Maybe that's part of the reason why plastic is cheap. Nevertheless, plastic is cheap compared to what it should be if we're internalizing all the external costs. How do we resolve that? I think it's through politics. I think it's electing the right people in office to have the public policy. And in the meantime, changing individual ideas about waste so that we will have those elections that are going to result in the right public policy. There are There are a lot of private sector partners we can get on this, and the example of China's intervention in their economy to create public policy is the most extreme example, but you can manage with private sector, you can manage with the public sector. They have one approach, we have another. Somewhere in the middle is probably going to be the answer.
What's the caption there?
That's a Maoist era poster, but it shows their ethos, and in Chinese it says, "Knowledge is a tool in the war against nature." Wow.
Yeah. Wow. There's no irony.
But it, yeah.
No.
Everybody's been marching to that tune, though.
But the
We'll come
irony-
back. We'll come back around and invite Patty if you have other thoughts, questions that you wanted to pose to Rick, and then after everybody's had another chance to flag a few more issues, we'll open it up with Rick.
Yeah, Rick, I wanted to ask, what has your experience been with dealing with the toxic wastes? Has anybody brought up ways of handling it, like with the mushrooms or the enzymes or things like that? Has that been actually
I know about that toxics. When I was started in Fresno, and they took me to Kellerman in the early '80s, it scared it on. I mean, we rolled the windows up, and things were evaporating. My sense is that we have to not allow them. If they got to use a material that could be toxic in making their product, they have to handle it on site. They should be forced to reuse their own material. This is cradle to cradle. This is McDonald's saying. We're talking about growing population, so it's about a redesign. It really is, I think. Because when I started, it's like those wash stuff that has little beads in it that women use something to foliate their skin. Now they got stuff out that's got plastic beads in it. So they're sampling the water in the middle of the Lake Michigan, which is a drinking water supply as well. They're finding these little beads. So now we're at an industry zero waste meeting, and I'm sure, we're going to look at the audience. What are you going to do? Well, 3 people from the audience are figuring out ways to invent to use the beads. But the rest of us said, well, why let them make that product in the first place? What do we? Can't you do something else? So that's my answer. We need to redesign.
well, but with the stuff that's already here, like in
Yeah.
Russia, what they did.
It's that mycelium, right? Dan Knapp is all over these bugs that
Yeah.
I'm not I'm just there for a physicist or a biologist and answer that. I wish. Because we got a lot of toxic chemicals, and it's just like that spill. I don't know if you watch the Daily Show. He's going, okay, this is America. Let's see. We put all these toxic chemicals in vats right next to our water supply. And then they spilled, I don't know the story, they contaminated the whole water supply of a city. The entire city is off tap water.
Patty, say a little bit more about what you're talking about the mycelium.
Well, I don't know a whole lot about it, but I was going to talk about also how in Russia, after the horrible Chernobyl disaster, the people that were farming in a certain way that created really healthy soil, they found that the places where they were farming in that way didn't have the contamination in them. So there are ways that we can work with and let the earth, help us.
Yeah. My composting guys feel that we can get most of all the pathogens through composting. Our concern is the heavy metals, and that's the issue with the biosolvents.
Renee, other thoughts or questions, things you wanted to put on the table?
Yeah, I wrote down your comments about from waste management to managing resources. That seems like a really kind of open-ended question, but how do we get closer to managing resources? And also look what you are buying and look at what you are wasting. And I think there's so much waste that is going into even our production systems that I wouldn't even know where to start. And so, from my point of view, you're a waste management person, and I know you know these are important. Do you have? Can we get on the politicians, or what do we do?
I'm a resource manager. That's when I realized that. And what I figured, most of the managers are doing what's Ventura County, 65%, 60, something like that. if he's over 50%, he's managing more resources than he is wasting, so he's a resource manager, he really is. It's just he doesn't have the tools to take it all the way because we've sabotaged it in our tax bills and our rules, but we can change that. Now, I say we just change it to resource management, that's the field, and that's what you do, everything's a commodity out of that. Now, what was your second question?
And it was about, look at what you're using versus what you're wasting, and that directly just applies to water. I don't think we have any idea how much water we're really wasting
It's huge.
and how we're using it.
And it's going to be a big deal with this drought coming on. It's right. And our resource managers were for the professional managers here as we look at our profession because the UN and the environmental program is looking at waste management. We're saying in the whole international, no, it's managing resources. It's a global thing. And so we're going to do the paradigm. The other issue is what we buy. And we're all consumers. We all have that in common here. We're all consumers. And most of us all have smartphones or computers, and they go on the internet. And so 1 billion people on the planet are on the internet. Imagine that as a consumer movement. Let's say, put it out the internet on Friday, we're really bad at BP because they spilled again. Nobody goes to BP and everybody wears a green shirt. If 10% of the people did that, we shut down BP. Our consumer power, the industry, manufacturers can't survive if we don't buy their stuff. So the key is knowledge. That's what the guy said. They want to solve this with knowledge. Let people know about products, how they're made and where they're going, and tell the industry, we love your product, we hate your package, I'm not going to buy it until you change it. We told, what's that, yogurt, she's, Sunny Yogurt, something in New Hampshire. She's a wonderful person. Why don't we take all our yogurt that's left over and give it to cows, and we have an office paper recycling program. And we just took our high-density polyethylene and turned it into a polypropylene. Well, I can't recycle polypropylene in California. I can do so I said, I love your yogurt and I'll use it, but I can't recycle your container. Could you put your address and a stamp right on the container? And I'll just mail it back. But she saved a fortune because she lightweighted her container because of energy prices for her and her transportation. She caused a burden on me, the consumer, who she wants to buy our product. Sorry. The same with Nike. If they want me to send their shoes back to them, fine. On the shoebox, put a stamp on there and an address. I'd be glad to send it back. These are the programs we can do. I mean, if 10 people in this room wrote a letter to Dart Containers. Dart Containers make the polystyrene containers. You got my kids using polystyrene containers and they're going to the landfill. Don't do it. We're not going to buy it. We're going to start a campaign. They'll start calling you up. Were you at the conference last year? So the guy does a TV show, children's show, and somebody asked about trash, and all of a sudden all the questions became about trash. So the question became, what do I do with my polystyrene tickets? And so this teacher, she started collecting them, and she tried to figure out how to do it. She went through the process. She found the company that was making it. Finally got out to Dart, and Dart said, "Oh." It turns out she was driving past the factory on the way to school. So she said, drive fast, I could just drop them off. They said, fine, drop them off. So she did. And then she told all her friends, and they started calling. And then they said, well, wait a minute, we didn't mean everybody. So we outed them to the entire CRA network, which is all the recycling managers in California. And Dart's a problem. They have to take responsibility. And we in the school system, I know you mothers and PTAs, you're really ticked off on the food service on the cafeteria. You hear it all the time. And that's styrene tray. And Dart's the bad guy. But we go to Dart and say, we're not going to buy this stuff anymore. What are they going to do? So that's my answer. It's a consumer movement. It's huge. We can do it with the internet. You don't have to ever leave the house. I say that about politics too. I understand. Nobody wants to go down to City Hall and put a suit on and sit with those idiots in that audience. Nobody wants to do it. It's terrible. And not only that, your item is on an agenda that you park it in a 2-hour parking spot, and your item shows up at 4 o'clock. Okay. So, there's Laura, my daughter. We've got Zero Waste San Diego. It's a website. On the website, we have a listserv. You get to our website, you want to join the listserv, you just put your email in. We got 700 people on the listserv now. We said, send a letter to the mayor and tell them we want a mandatory recycling ordinance. I got about 400 emails. Now, they don't ever respond, but they read every one of them. And by God, San Diego, very conservative city, majority vote, unanimously voted a mandatory recycling ordinance. They just voted mandatory zero waste by 2040, and they told the staff to come back with a plan. this is just done by people using their emails. This is what we can do. This is a consumer movement. I want to, I'm trying to excite you guys at the end of the day. To get
We can come back and,
Yeah, sorry.
and ask David whether that strategy would work in Ventura County in a minute. But first, let's hear again from Steve. Steve, of course, represents two of the really important constituencies in this valley, namely small business owner and small agriculturalist. Steve, other thoughts of what you're hearing?
Well, personally, a couple of things. One is we elected to fallow 3 acres last fall because of what we were headed into with this drought. And it's a little bit of it was just a gesture, and I don't really know to what extent other people have been able to do that who are producing food. One thing is I'm able to do that because I only produce annuals, but if someone has trees and they're invested in long-term fruit crops, and they stop watering 3 acres of it, we're going to kill it. And then all their tangerines are dead, or their orange trees, or whatever it is. So not this particular answer doesn't fit every producer. I wanted to make sure that I could come back, and I had some very specific questions to ask David about that mulch, but is that,
Go ahead.
well, one of the things that I was interested is that mulch, the one on the left that works, is that the stuff from Michigan State?
No, it's from a company that's in Manhattan Beach. I have a sample of it with me.
Okay, because I've been looking into that for the last. I don't use mulch, haven't used mulch because of that. Then I started doing some research last year and realized that the industry hadn't been getting up to speed with regard to alternatives to plastic, and so I'm very interested in using that because we have some significant weed problems. And also would probably be a real good thing in terms of conserving water. Another thing that when Phil did that experiment with his strawberries, did he get the same production with the plastic as he did with the stuff from Manhattan Beach?
It didn't make a difference.
It didn't make a difference. Because one negative that has come up is that the plastic tends to warm the soil up more. Maybe it would be a negative if you're trying to grow strawberries in Ojai in the summer, maybe like it cool off a little bit. So that sounds good. The other thing I noticed was that I'm sitting on about 10 tons of drip tape right now. Harrison has come and got it, and they'll just take it as is, and it's not rolled up. But that is an impediment, especially to small growers who don't have the technology to wind this stuff up, because the big strawberry growers now have these elaborate machines that will wind up the mulch, the plastic sheeting, and they'll wind up all the drip tape too, and on tractors, and then it's on a spool and it just goes right in storage. But mine comes out by hand and it's just in this gigantic pile of black spaghetti. It's in the parking lot. But Harrison took it last time.
Did they charge you?
No, they didn't. But I see that's one of the things. I figured that they're coming again for a county-wide cleanup in March, and they did bring a special dumpster for me. I think they were just in a good mood.
Yeah, it has some value, and I think I can get in touch with somebody who's going to pay for it.
Yeah, I don't want to make any money. I don't want to lose any money by getting rid of it. So we don't mind having a roll-off come and then just pull the stuff into the roll-off. And that would be fine with us.
That's great. Renee has a question.
I have a question just because I have both of you in the room here. I work with clients who are wanting to get rid of their grass. Grass is one of the biggest outside users of our potable drinking water, goes into our landscapes. 50 to 60% of our potable water is going to our landscapes, including grass. People want to get rid of it. People are starting to get it and wake up. We can sheet mulch some of it, and what we can't sheet mulch, we can tear up and then sheet mulch it. Sheet mulching requires cardboard, and it also requires mulch. Is there any way in our waste stream in our area to create a place where people can get the cardboard? I've found some home places down in, a home furniture store, big sheets of cardboard, and I found a client who's got 7,000 square feet of grass and wants to take it out.
Ooh.
But just to take that out is going to cost a lot of money, paper and mulch. So is there any way we could get some of that or have a way to get it?
Yes, if you're willing to pay $120 a ton. And tremendous amount of money collecting it. And even more money, of course, sheet mulching it.
Renee, I'll sell you mine for $100 a ton.
But just your recipe you just said is what they're collecting in San Francisco. That is in the green bin is food waste, yard clippings, and food dirty paper. That's the carbon bulking agent that you're looking for.
That's what we need.
And my partner, Richard Flammer, Hidden Resources, is a compost tech. He works for a recyclology up there. Whenever they have a smell, he's up there. And what he'll tell you is what's coming out of the residential green bins of food and dirty paper and yard waste is perfect. It grinds up, there's no smell. In commercial, they're having a lot of problems with, but I have think that has to do with the lack of education on the managers of facilities at the home we're getting it.
Well, Rick, in Ventura County, we have a problem that you've seen probably in many places where, yes, we know food waste can easily be composted with yard waste. None of our facilities are permitted to handle
Right.
food waste.
Right,
We have facilities in Ventura County permitted to handle yard waste.
right.
There's only one with a temporary, limited authorization to take food waste
Right.
only from post-industrial sources.
Right.
So that's why we are not allowed to put food waste in our yard waste
This is
bin.
the barrier. This is the
And
why.
it's a regulatory barrier. So even, I'm saying what we need to do to make real progress is to have public policy that facilitates recycling. But before we even do that, we need public policy that doesn't inhibit it.
So one of the.
Most of our environmental regulations right now are not geared toward making good things happen. They're geared towards stopping bad things from happening.
You're absolutely
What
right.
about that program in Ventura County? My wife and I got a compost bin, some type of plastic compost bin from Ventura County.
From the government center, from our truck
They
center.
were giving them
Yeah,
away,
good.
and it works
Oh,
great.
back-
give them away? We
oh,
didn't sell it to
backyard.
you?
Yeah, backyard.
So when we,
Sell it to you at a truckload sale, or we actually gave it away?
You gave it away.
Wow, that must have been some years ago, I guess. Yeah, we charge now.
So this is a real frustration for all of us, especially in
Yes.
Southern California, because you can't get to zero unless you compost. And we told the state, you can't get to 75% unless you look at the organics. So policy-wise, this year, there's going to be a bill, West Chesborough, that's going to take away the subsidy for using organics as cover at the landfill. So, right now, if the organics come in from the ARC program and they just put them for cover at the landfill, that they
Counts as recycling.
they.
That's why, when you
they
said
don't
what
have-
percent are you at, I was thinking to
With or
myself, the numbers are garbage. Not the garbage is garbage, the numbers are garbage, because it's what do you count?
Well, forget the counting, they don't have to pay the tax, the $1.50 or whatever it is, to the state on that material. So in San Bernardino, what the law says you gotta cover for 6 inches, they were covering with 4 feet of ground up yard waste because they wouldn't have to pay the $1.50 tax. In San Diego, it was even worse. They were grounding it up, using it for cover, and they were putting tarps on top of it. Why? Well, because it stinks. Shut up. Will you really? No kidding. So our big barrier is that obstacle has to be overcome. It has to be overcome, and it's going to be citizens changing. We need a Resource Management Act. AB 939, the Integrated Waste Management Act, which governs us, was 1988. It's been 25 years. It's time. Most of the source reduction recycling elements and the composting elements, you guys don't even look at anymore. They were never do them. They were never funded. They were never taken seriously. What you do is you ban organics from the landfill. Period. All compostable organics from the landfill. No longer is that an option. That changes everything.
In this bill, is there any focus at all on decentralizing? Because it seems like we're hauling trash, and now we're all hauling a whole bunch of other stuff too. And our model is to try to keep it right where it is.
Community, yeah.
And kind of a permaculture model, so don't let any organic material leave the property. But sometimes it's difficult with a
Only
palm.
the city or the county. I take it from the urban centers to the outside farms, outside your city. Because now you're talking about food security. You want to make your soils be rich enough that when the drought comes and you can't get oil, you can still grow food and feed your city, and nobody clumps it up. So Jerry in Australia calls it city to soil. And when it goes to the farmers, and what he'll do is he'll give people baskets of food if they join in the composting program. But the idea is you separate, well, it's a dense urban area, you get the green can, it's a rural area, you figure out how to do it. It's all going to a local facility. Problem is it's not permitted. Okay, but let me say this. We're changing. Jerry's in office right now, all right? Jerry Brown opened up the first Zero Waste Conference in 1996 in Monterey. I introduced him. And he talked about the Zen of recycling. So we got a super majority up there. They're all going to have to leave next year. they gotta get something done to get reelected, this is the time to do it. And what we do is we say, in the next 25 years, it's resource management, zero waste goal. And what they have is this cap and trade thing they've been doing. So you can now, they're taxing polluters. They got $600 million. It has to go to environmental funds. So this year, the governor said $300 million going to high-speed rail, the other $300 million divided across the board to the environmental. Cal Recycle got $30 million allocated for composting program. So my sentence is, we get to Ventura County, say, we're the first county to go organics out, we're gonna set a goal, no organics, no landfill in 10 years, we're gonna phase it out, and then we're gonna set permitted land for composting here, and become a pilot program, and get that state money to build it and make it happen.
You know, I think I really need to add some local information here. Okay, one of the material types that's very specific to the Ventura River Valley, including the Ojai Valley, all the way up through the Ojai Valley, is horse manure. And there was a study recently completed, $80,000 spent on a feasibility study for how we can get to zero waste just on this one material type, because it's so important. 10,000 tons of horse manure and bedding per year from the Ventura River Valley all the way up through the Ojai Valley. So that's a big number, hard to think of. You think that the maximum you can put in a roll-off bin, the big ones that go on the back of the truck, is 10 tons. So we're talking about 1,000 trucks full as they can be of horse manure and bedding. Now, it's not all going to landfill. So this is why I needed to mention it, because we have to go beyond the idea of saying we're going to get to zero waste by no burn, no bury. Because where a lot of that is going is decentralized. Sounds great, right? Let's decentralize it, let's everybody manage it on their farm. But the problem with that is that a lot of people aren't managing it correctly. So we have runoff going into the waterways, and then we have too much organics in the waterway, we have too much biological oxygen demand, we have the death of animals in the waterways. So that's not good either. And then it gets very expensive too, because the LA Regional Water Quality Control Board, which regulates Ventura County, sets our limits on how much total dissolved solids we can have and how much biological oxygen demand we can have, and we don't meet it. So then we have all kinds of crazy regulations that make it harder for people to do all sorts of things. So it can't just be zero waste. It has to be zero wasted resources. And the zero wasted resources covers the issue of we also can't waste the resource of our waterways. We can't have everybody managing it on their own unless they're going to manage it right. We have to regulate not just the subsidies for creating waste in the first place, and not just the subsidies for waste, but also we need to have some regulation of inappropriate management of materials that belong better managed.
Thanks, David. We've got about 20 minutes, and we want to open it up to you all to ask questions of the panelists, and of course of Rick. Please raise your hand, and when your turn comes, just stand up and introduce yourself and then ask your question. Yes, please.
Hi, Diane Duncan. So this is to Dave. So who in Ventura County kind of has this as their area of that they should be focusing on this, but maybe they're not?
And when you say this, what do you mean?
Of accomplishing this or getting the ball rolling to try to have something like this in Ventura County?
No one.
That's your job, David.
It
We
would
hired
be
you for that.
if I had the mandate. I don't have the mandate.
So how do we get you the mandate?
Well, it wouldn't be me. This stuff we presented today is so big that it's not going to be one person's job. So really, the place to look is the Board of Supervisors. The way to get that idea on the Board of Supervisors is to elect the right supervisors. And every election makes a difference. The county supervisor representing this area is Steve Bennett. He's on board with a lot of these ideas. Not every district is, so it's not enough actually just to work in your own area, but if you want to really make a difference for Ventura County, you need to be influential countywide.
But these are local community projects, and the other thing is it's no red or blue here. I'm getting the unanimous council in Oceanside where it's a red-blue divide 3-2. They went 5-0, and the Tea Party guys made the motion and the second. And the reason they did it is they hate waste because they're conservative. And so we're talking about conservation of resources here. We're all on the same page. And that's what we found in San Diego. It was a 9-0 vote there. But again, the Tea Party guys, Mr. Sherman and Ms. Knapp, were the ones who made the... So I don't think you have to wait to re-elect or elect somebody. I think what you need to do is write letters to them and say zero waste is a great idea. We ought to do something about it. If 4 of you do it, they'll tell David to come up with what the hell is he talking about? Could you please explain to him? And then, are you Public Works? You're Public Works. It's probably Public Works is going to get this job, although it could be environmental health. It really should be. And I would look at the general services.
Comprehensive, it's everybody.
I would look at the parks for crying out, and the libraries. My family are librarians, and they had to beg the city to send a recycling truck to pick up the paper that they were recycling in the library. It was absolutely stupid. And we had to go through all the custodial contracts to make sure that was taken care of. But that's what it has to do. The whole county has to have zero waste, managing resources. We went for a zero goal of wasting. Should be the goal for the county. And then how do we do it? How does Parks do it? How does Public Works do it? How does General Services do it? Because we're all involved in this thing. I mean, when you go out in the mall, there ought to be a recycling bin in the mall. Same thing at the beach.
Let's have another question. Yes, please introduce yourself.
I'm Rachel Morris, Executive Director of EC Coal. We deal with climate change, and we're about 7 years old, and the pie chart has always been transportation is the big hog as far as greenhouse gases. And then this year, for the first time, I saw a different pie chart, and it's like, coming in internationally, and it's showing electricity is starting to be one of the big ones in utilities. And nowhere on there does it say anything about landfill. It's not on there. And I'm thinking maybe because it was too complicated, so people just left it off. I don't know why it's not on there, but what I'm wondering is, that concept, is that concept inclusive to the transportation, the creation, et cetera, of every little thing you buy? So then the takeaway would be, quit buying so much stuff as a major way to reduce your carbon emissions? Because really the end goal is there's organizations, there's governments, and there's individuals, and there's businesses, and we all play a part in trying to not let the world burn up. And with the limited time we've got left, what's the quickest way we can reduce these things? So where are those numbers coming from?
I don't know about the particular chart you saw or the one that Rick used when he was saying landfills are a major source. I can tell you that Ventura County is a little bit different. Both of our landfills have very sophisticated systems of methane gas recovery and energy generation from that. So really, I think the thing I want to educate people about, though, is don't be fooled by it. Some people will give you the message, hey, landfills are not a greenhouse gas issue at all in Ventura County because it's actually a good thing when you throw away organics. We're recovering energy from it. And then it can leave people confused. So I just want to give you this bit of truth. No matter how good your system is, even with tubes through your whole landfill and with a lot of power vacuum sucking all the gas you can get, you're not going to have 100% recovery. Waste management claims 90%. A lot of activists say 50%. No one's ever going to put a bubble over an entire landfill and really measure what the truth is. But we know that methane gas is at least 20 times more powerful than carbon as a greenhouse gas, and a lot of it comes off of landfills. So it's hard to measure. And I don't really know where it ranks compared to feedlots.
A lot of it just comes out when they dump it right on the face of the landfill. It's when you see, your grass clippings turned into water in your trash can. That's decomposition happening, and so that's most of the gas. And then the other biggest time is the landfill cracks and it's been built up, but it comes out. Peter Anderson figures 30. SCS Dave Ross said a modern double-line landfill can do up to 80 to 90%. But how many modern double-line landfills are out there in the first place?
Well, that's what it can do, and then one of your lines breaks or it gets clogged, and then it doesn't work, or your generator goes down.
They force that stuff through there. What they do is they cause fires inside of the landfills as they're sucking air because it's decomposition. Get a spark, now the landfill's on fire. They got a lot of big issues. And your issue, you're right, transportation number one, but nobody can get their arms around transportation if you're a city. Shut the freeway down, or high-speed rail, or whatever. But when you get down to second, third, fourth, and fifth, the herbicides and pesticides and the farming and the landfills show up as the generators. So what I wanted to say, said to you too, zero waste, yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey. We can't get to zero. Come on. Maybe just the day before we die. In Iowa, she said, Rick, you can't get to zero without Jesus. Whatever it takes. I don't care if that stewardship and is part of what you believe, then absolutely right. But you want to attain that way. So as you point to zero, now you're going to use the journey. So you do the low-hanging fruit first, okay? As you go on, you get the easy stuff. As you get down to the transportation, what you're going to do. And what we can do is manage organics in a lot better. What's happening with the organics and the bad use and the bad management is that we just turned our back on it. And I'll give you an example. It's a great example. So this guy's got a chicken farm. He's doing mass production of food and stuff. So there's a lot of dead chicken in a chicken farm. Okay, mortality. You can't sell a dead chicken for killing for food. It has to be live before they kill it. Mm-hmm. He's got these dead chickens. Planning department says, okay, the way you handle dead chicken waste, you put them in a bin and you take it to the landfill and you bury it. Right across the street is the stables, and it's this is like San Diego, and all the big thoroughbreds from Del Mar are bred. Some of those horses are worth $100 million. They're very expensive. So they got the stable stuff and all the good stuff. And so planning says best way to handle that stuff is to put it in a bin and take it to the landfill. And what's in there? Across the street, here's dead chickens and bulking agent. They got a perfect composting recipe. If the planners would have had a clue on how to do it, we would have solved problems like that, and it wouldn't have been a landfill. And so my last part of it is that we've created an industry. It's like when I can't find that too many industries in this world that started up without training their workers first. We created, the recycling industry just happened, and there is no degrees in recycling. And then we just finally got the first curriculum approved by Board of Education on recycling in California, in Southern California. With the classes I teach in Irvine Valley, we give 18 units towards credit towards rolling over to university in resource management. Not there. So when you hire somebody, are you a recycler? Well, I got a degree in environmental management. Well, maybe. So we really don't know about this stuff. That's part of it. We really have not looked into it. That's why when we all see this stuff and say, well, they must, the young people look at me and say, okay, so why are they against this? Okay, Mr. Anthony, I hear you, but why are they against it? And it's just out ignorance. We did such a good job in the 70s and 80s telling you that the landfills were safe. Don't worry about it. And they're not. But it's not that they're not safe, they're just stupid.
Let's open space for another question. Please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, hi, I'm Maxalina. This is for Rick. Hi. I'd like to address the problem of computers. I know we're talking about local, but there's nothing local about computers. As far as I understand, we go to the Congo and take a mineral from them. We're a very wealthy country and we give them nothing, unless that's not true, as far as I know. What would you recommend? Would you turn off your computer and your cell phone? And how do we address this? Do we let them go with nothing as we keep using our computers to make money? What do we do?
This question right on the heels of a very successful e-waste collection project that the Green Coalition did along with some other partners. How much, do you know, Deborah, how much was collected this last week?
11 tons e-waste.
Oh,
11 tons of
In
e-waste.
4 hours. In the little community of Ohio Valley.
And you got, we said this to Valley.
Yeah, we have a partnership with Harris.
That's great.
So where are they taking that e-waste? China?
No, e-recycling we have a letter on file for e-recycling of California based in Los Angeles that it's all dismantled and put into its raw materials and value right there.
So Michael Biddle from MB Polymer has got a giant factory in San Francisco where he takes up these old computers and grinds them up and floats out the different kinds of things. But my answer is let's redesign the damn thing. I mean, make it so that we don't use toxic chemicals. I mean, I think we're smart enough to figure out how to make that work.
And in the meantime, what do we do about Congo? Because they're really poor and they could use the money.
Congo, and think about where most of your e-waste, you think it's going to China because you see those stories. It's going right across the border to Mexico, and the same damn thing's happening. people are taking them apart, melting off the plastic and getting the silver and the gold, and that's it, and the stuff is going into the riverways. It's just lack of
Taking the
management.
mineral from the Congo.
You want fair trade, it sounds like. You're talking about the
You're
purchasing.
talking about an upstream
Yeah,
issue of resource
it's a beginning
extraction.
thing, because you can't use a computer or a cell phone without the mineral content. You cannot. And if anybody in here has a computer, you're using a Congo.
Okay, so the
You have
money,
to do
the money should go to those billionaires who are making the huge sums off, ripping
Right.
those people off. The money should go back into the
Right,
Congo.
how do we accomplish that? I'd love to do that. How do we do that?
Well, I think knowledge is important, education. There's stuff happening in India. Maybe somebody else
We
has
would
to
have
go
to
in.
stop using our computers for a while to show them or do something. That we're
Well,
not
let's
gonna
stop.
continue
What happened when
use
Target? What
this.
happened when Target? Somebody hacked their computers and 1 million people got their cards. They'll bankrupt the whole store. The whole,
So that's a real upstream, that's a deep
Good.
upstream
it is.
issue about resource extraction. So it's not just product responsibility, but also resource extraction. We've got several questions about in the back, please.
So, I was gonna ask
Please
Marty
introduce yourself.
Bushman, Santa Barbara Permaculture Network. You've been doing programs a long time, but also I'm with the Center for Sustainability at Santa Barbara City College. And we've done many programs around waste, and we talk about that all the time, that waste is the biggest issue. The biggest. We'll solve energy, we'll solve a lot of things, but waste, we're drowning in it. But electronics I was also going to bring up. And one of our programs, we had a woman, her name is Janet Unruh, and she has a book, it's How to Recycle Everything. And she has the Institute of Materials Sustainability. And she's making the point that we talk about peak oil, but we're going to run out of the materials to do these electronics probably in 10 years, because it is rare metals that are needed. And that these products can be designed so that everything gets recycled. So what's being discussed here today is not it's hypothetical, but we're not going to exist in this world that we create unless we figure this thing out. One of our other programs, and it's a book that everybody could, it's Gunter Pauli and The Blue Economy. And he's talking about designing entrepreneurial or business to operate like an ecosystem. And we're going to have to start doing that, where it was said many times that nothing leaves the system and you operate within the system where you are. And it is possible. But also back to electronics, almost 11% of the electricity used goes to our use of computers and all of that. It's huge, its impact. So that's something to...
Thank you. Another question?
I'm Cynthia Greer, and I just actually have a question for you. This is about recycling locally here. I had a conversation with, I believe his name is Ray from Harrison.
Ray Olson is with the city of Ventura.
No, and maybe I can't think of his name, but he's from Harrison, and he's the one that goes around to the businesses and helps evaluate their resource management. I thought that he had mentioned that they were going to be starting a composting program, but then it kind of sounded like...
Remember what I was saying was that Agriman has a 2-year temporary authorization to handle some food waste from limited sources, post-industrial.
So not even restaurants or anything like
Well, they do have some restaurants, and then there's also another program like that in Santa Paula. But yeah, it's small and it's from limited sources. We do have some things on the horizon that will make it better. Like for example, there's a facility proposed for food waste composting at Agriman at Limonera that might change a lot of things in the future. But we'll see.
It's a drop-off facility? Or?
No, that will, if it succeeds, allow food waste to be mixed in with yard waste at curbside.
Okay.
That is on the horizon, it is coming, but it's not here yet, and we've been trying for many years. And there's also a lot of risk of failure.
It's just a logistics thing at this point then.
Well, it's been mainly a permitting problem, because we have composting facilities that would love to take food waste and just haven't been able to overcome the regulatory barriers. And I mean, the regulations are put in place with good intentions, of course, to prevent compost facilities from causing all kinds of potential problems. But in order to avoid that environmental risk, we have a big environmental cost. We aren't able to succeed with our businesses that want to do good recycling.
It's not instrumental, it's about $150,000, so we go through an EIR to the.
Well, you have to be able to do it too, like.
Well, they're regulating composting facilities like their landfills, where they don't want any leakage in the groundwater, you gotta put miners in, and these are all costs.
And there are some legitimate reasons, like, okay, so our biggest compost facility in Ventura County is at Ormond Beach. And even with this small pilot program that they're doing, right, that's the issue, there's birds. There are 2 endangered bird species that are there. And when you do food waste, you attract seagulls. And seagulls are enemies of the least tern and the snowy plover. So you can't do food waste composting there on a big scale. So sometimes the environmental regulations have good reason, but nevertheless, we have a lot of competing needs. And when we are so strict against regulation of compost facilities, it does prevent composting, which has other environmental problems.
Is that the place at the old mushroom?
Yes.
That's still functioning?
Yes.
Okay.
Shoreline's gone, it's just used as.
Shoreline was taken over by
Friends,
By
it's getting warm in the room.
Yes.
Our time is drawing to a close, and so anxieties are rising. Lots of really important information is swirling in the air, and problems have been named. I just want to invite you to take a deep breath.
I'm saying happy trails.
We're so appreciative that you all have taken your beautiful, warm Saturday afternoon with a rising west swell to sit in this room and tackle one of the most important issues facing us. So I want to invite our panelists to each just take 1 minute to offer a word of whatever kind of word, an exhortation or a hope. And we'll move right down the line, and we'll end with Rick and give him 2 minutes to make his final word. And then we'll have about an hour or so for, am I right about that, Ulrich? So for some just informal networking and continuing conversation. All right, so if Patty, if you would start. Yeah.
Well, Rick mentioned biomimicry, and I would just want to focus on how we can allow the earth to heal itself and get out of the way and stop all of that crazy input of chemicals. And so how do we do that? That would be one of the most important things to me, because I love this earth, and we all love this earth so much. So if it would require me to give up something, I would do it. And I know that probably anyone in the room would be willing to, if we knew that if we would give up our computer, would that solve the problem? Not completely. But what are we willing to do in order to make this earth livable for our grandchildren? I don't know, that's a huge.
Good word, Patty, thank you. Renee, 1 minute's good word.
Yeah, I would just like to focus on that idea of using nature as a resource, and using nature as a resource on our own property, in our own landscape, and being able to harvest rainwater off of your roof. 1,000 square feet of roof can provide 600 gallons of water in a 1-inch rain event. So 1,000 square feet, 600 gallons, and all you need is 1 inch of rain. But where are you going to put the water? You got to be able to put it in your landscape. You don't want to buy a big plastic tank to put 600 gallons in 1 inch of rain. But you can put it in your landscape. And the birds and the bees and the butterflies will love it. And the grass, there's native grasses, there's natural ways to go. And I also think that everybody wants to take action to save water on their water bill and stop using and wasting potable drinking water that can be, used for other things. So there are answers, there are resources, there are ways to do it, and we can do it together.
Steve Sprinkle.
Well, I'm impressed that, of course, this choir is singing in tune, and probably the bigger hassle, the bigger problem, of course, is trying to handle and to convince industry. I've got a 6 dumpster a week habit. Wow. Doing everything I already do. and it really makes me unhappy. You know, much of the stuff we've consciously tried to keep out of those dumpsters, and the half of it is recycled paper. You know, that which is okay, and the plastic and aluminum glass. But that trash dumpster, it's going straight to the landfill. I can't do much about that one.
What's in there?
Stuff that I can't recycle. Debris, post-consumer debris that's all mixed up, like plastic with food and detritus and scumble and whatever. I don't want to. I just say just throw it away. And then, because we've been recycling forever, but it's well marked, but it's almost like I have to have a policeman sitting in front of the bins in order to make sure that people throw the right thing in the right bin. Because then when the employees asked me, they said, well, what about this? I said, you can't, I don't want you to go through that, throw that away, because it's half good. So there's a lot of education. And then the other thing that occurred to me was that we didn't have a vegetarian restaurant because of the environment per se, but it seems like that's one thing that I've learned here is that having a non-meat diet would significantly alter that load, and even being a vegan. And of course, that's the big vegan story. Is one of the big vegan stories is the environmental impact, not just animal welfare.
Thank you. David, really appreciate you joining us with the perspectives you bring.
Well,
Good word.
I've been trying to stress how important public policy is, and that the ways to influence it are by electing the right people. And the way you can do that is by getting involved in campaigns. Don't just vote, influence other people's votes. And also, once people are elected, you can do the kinds of things that Rick suggested. Letter writing does make a difference. If you like what you've heard today and you think zero waste is a good idea, write to your local politicians. You know, Steve Bennett is your county supervisor in this area. You have a city council that's already very progressive. They need to hear from people. They're probably already hearing from people, saying, get the government off my back. And, you should say, well, let's get the government on the case of zero waste. So influence your local politicians that are elected and elect ones that will be influenced.
Thank you very much. And Rick, we so appreciate you giving your time to us and a long career that you have had trying to bring the unconventional into the conventional and thereby change not only hearts and minds but also landscapes and economies. So 2 minutes, what do you want to leave us with?
Okay, so 40 years as a practitioner, I weep for you. I understand your pain. I feel your pain. I do. I do. And in my two counties, I actually carried water for the board of supervisors, and I really recognize that they do listen. Now, it's true they do listen to people that give them money, but those guys call them on the phones. But if you show up on meetings and you talk to them, and you talk to the aides, they're responsive for that. They are. But I'm not working for government. I do have a pension, and so it's in my interest to see that the government stays alive. I don't know. I sit there with those Tea Party guys and go, you're taking away my pension. I worked at a 1/3 of the price for 20 years, and you're now going to take it away because you bought the Cadillac when you were 25. I'm not going to, Anyhow, what we see, we do zero waste and culture change is one of our classes. And we have people from all over the world, and we talk about what does that mean? What does that culture change mean? And it means having less children. It means if we worked 6 hours a day instead of 8 hours a day, the CO2 would go down by 30%. It would be huge. It would be absolutely, 6 hours. Well, maybe you'd stay home and be able to work with your kids. You could make your own bread and churn your own butter. Why not? I mean, what we thought was having time with your family should be more important than going to work for 14 hours a day. I'm talking about that Protestant ethic that says we work harder and longer than any country in the world. We have less vacation days, and that's taking up a lot of energy. So I'm going to step back as a culture and say, okay, here as I get older, I'm 68 this year. I'm still playing soccer.
Good for
Scored a
you.
goal last night.
All right.
It's an over 30 league too, that's pretty heavy. But, no, he said, I would have knocked you over if you weren't an old man. I find, as we get older, I feel responsible for my children and my grandchildren and what I have and what I don't have. And what I knew in the 70s, we knew it. In the 70s, we just couldn't prove it. We couldn't prove it. We didn't have the scientific equipment to pollution, prove pollution. Okay, there's no doubt about it. We do nanotechnology. We know what's wrong. We all know what's wrong. Everybody in this room knows what's wrong. And we're all together on what's right. There wasn't one person in this room who tried to attack anything that anybody was saying. We're all on the same page. Okay, so what's the problem? Well, we're alienated. We sit at home, we watch reality TV, and we think that's the world. But the world is about, this is the world here. It's what's out in the mall. And so, don't take a lot of time. I'm not saying that. But we think to make this thing work, it's got to be local democracy. Federal government, I understand it's really tough to feel you can make a difference. State government, we fought bills, get all the way through the governor and watch him veto it 3 times. The last one, to reverse depletion allowance, giving recycling companies the same depletion allowances as the virgin materials, got through the legislature, everybody was on board, the nation couldn't sign it. So what he did is he gutted out that stuff, wrote in an income tax depletion, signed it off that way. So on a pocket veto, I went, forget about the state. But I could take city government, I could take county government, and with county government, we have a power to move to the state to make that happen. That's the only way it's going to happen. And I'll finish it up. You want to have an enemy? I mean, if that's what you have to work that way, it's okay. You can have an enemy. It's the oil companies, okay? It's the oil companies. Everything is on fossil fuels. All your pollution's in the air and the water and the land is coming from oil-derived products. They don't deserve to be the number 1, 2, and 3 companies in the world and to own this state. And we can change it. We can change it by putting solar voltaics on our homes. We've just decentralized energy production by doing it. You put a cistern on your roof, you got your own water. You can almost get off the grid in your own backyard with composting and growing your own food without having to do that. And we ought to think about that. And we ought to think about uniting intellectually, because we all agree on these issues, and saying, and tell the people that make decisions for us. And that's why zero waste is so easy. We're not saying anything very cool. We're saying zero waste is the target, it's a journey. The devil's in the details. We'll argue it out on the way. And I'll tell you that the last 2 places, Fort Collins, and they said, and Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas says, Rick, you say zero waste, we say get a rope. Awesome. I swear, that's 4 or 5 years ago. Today, Austin, Texas was the first zero waste city in the Midwest. Bob Gethard is their CEO. They are rapid mandatory recycling. They've got composting facilities for the organic. Austin's blowing everybody's not. Fort Collins said the same thing to us. And we went into Fort Collins and we got a 7-0 vote from their council. Why? Because it was about jobs, it was about local sustainability, and it was about not wasting anymore. Everybody was on the same page. Now, the bottom line, what I wanted to say is, in all those cases, we said, well, this is what's it going to cost? What's it going to cost? And my new thing is, forget it. It won't cost anything. I want your budget. Your budget with the tax budgets, and what you get from the landfill, that's enough for me to do a zero waste program. Because I won't do anything different. I'm just going to focus on the high end. I'm going to focus on edible food and reusables on the top, feeding people first, and then move to the others, because we've already taken care of the commodities. So my last pitch would be this. Look, grandchildren, okay, come on, we're all at that level. And my kids won't reproduce, so I don't have to worry about that. But so worry about your grandchildren. Look at what we leave as our legacy. Baby boomers consumed a lot, we grew a lot, we can fix it. We're smart enough, we know how the government works, and we got people in office right now who understand it. I'd give Jerry Brown all this. I'll say, he did 8 years. Remember that when he took office, Proposition 13, they wiped out the whole tax base of California. And for 8 years, he brought Remember, he brought the government back. He didn't do radical things, but they called him Governor Moonbeam because he thought, well, that'd be crazy. But California could have a satellite and beam it around. Now, countries have that. So I'm just saying, we got an opportunity. We're the bulk of the population, the old baby boomers. You got time. You got money. Make your democracy work. Let's do it for the children.
Thank you.
I really want to thank our panelists as well as Rick, and I want to thank the Ohio Valley Green Coalition, Transition to Organics, and above all our hosts here at the Ojai Retreat Center. And Ulrich wants to say a word.
Yes, I just would like to thank everybody who came this afternoon, but especially Rick, all the panelists, and also all the volunteers. There are a lot of volunteers who helped make this event happen. It was a lot of work, and I helped also your financial support. And I want to make a last thank you, very special one, to Deborah. Because she put the word out. She made it possible that the Ojai Valley News wrote an article on front page. It was her work. Thank you.
That the Ojai Valley Green Coalition is in a membership drive right now, and your contributions will all be matched until the end of January. Is that right, Deborah?
That's right.
And the Ojai Valley Green Coalition is a place where we can get together and talk about our sustainable food issues, our water issues. I'm on the Watershed Council. You can come to a meeting and get involved. So the Green Coalition is a great way. The transition to organics is a great way. We have a community that does get people involved. So we'd love to see you come out for our meetings and join us.
The Ojai Retreat Center has invited us to mix and mingle until 5 o'clock, so this space is ours to continue the conversations informally. One more round of applause for Rick and the panel.
People like Ulrich to open up their facilities to this kind of public discussion that are the heroes, and I want to thank you for that.
Yes.